Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. We had a lot of rain yesterday, almost 2 inches, and flooding all over the place, but now it's 60 degrees, the end of December, go figure. Anyway, today we have a nice example of a screwdriver set from the across the pond, from England, Sheffield, England, Footprint. I'm sure you guys in England have heard of that before, but not many of us here in the States have, so let's go check it out.
Today's project comes all the way from England. And you gotta love stuff in a tool roll. You know, when I was a kid, my dad had a bunch of tools that came in tool rolls, and I just love them, you know. So what we have here is a beautiful example of a footprint. If you look here, Footprint. Now that is a company from the other side of the pond. My buddies in England. And what that is they've been in business since the 1700s, and in the same building for over 100 years. And they made all kinds of tools. They're most notably known for this type of tool.
Now, although Footprint made a ton of tools, their pipe tongs are what they're most noted for.
Now, this was an eBay find, and I was the only bidder on this because I don't think people really knew. But I knew right away when I was bidding on this that I wanted it for the simple reason that I saw that these particular items here, this was a high quality a ratcheting set, and it's hardly used at all, and this is solid, very heavy, and I'll show you how everything works. But the first thing we're going to do is I got to clean up this case, you know, and it's as nice as it is, it's got some staining and some dirty, so I'm going to use that hand cleaner. That works great on there. And let's get to it. Clean up the case, and then we have to address a couple things here. If you see here the tips, now whenever you see tips like this on a Phillips, that's a problem, and we'll address the tips and then demonstrate the tool. Now, before we get started on fixing this tip, let's talk a little bit about screws. You know, nothing better than being humble, because, you know, we all think we're smart, because when we tell our girlfriends or wives to go get a screwdriver and she says, what kind, the flat type or the star shaped, you know, and we laugh, we chuckle to ourselves and say it's called a Phillips. But the truth is that we're all ignorant when it comes to screws, because there are so many different types of screws and so many types of fastener heads and things like that. The Phillips was developed in the 30s. Was invented by, you know, Phillips gets the recognition, but it was actually invented before him. But it was invented for use on the automotive lines, because they used to have square screws, like slotted screws like this, and they just took too much time, especially with the automatic guns that Henry Ford was starting to use. So they came up with, they wanted to use the square drive screw, which Robertson invented, and he just wanted too much money, so they went with the Phillips. And but we can talk about screws for hours, so let's just get to the basics. Now, let's say we're talking about a slotted screw like this here. Now you look at this screw and you say, okay, you know, I'll just get a regular screwdriver. But if I show you here, this is one of the best investments I made. You've seen all these that come with a lot of sets that you get with different screw sets, and you have different... Now here you have 4 different slotted screwdriver heads, right? You say, well, that's pretty good. But if you get a gunsmithing set like this one here, and this is not a big set, but notice the difference. We have about 10 different slotted screwdriver heads just for slotting. And you say, well, you know, won't the other ones work? Well, that's the difference between stripping out and not stripping out. And I'll give you an example. Let's take this. This is an older type screw. And you can see here, you see the head, how that is cut nice. Now, I have to use, if I'm going to go with the largest one here, and I want to show you how the seat's in here. Now, when I put that slotted screw in here, you could see it seats all the way to the bottom of the screw, and there's absolutely no play, no wiggle whatsoever. Whereas and this is a number 8. If I take a number 7 and put it in here, it's going to fit, but there's just this slight, maybe a 32nd or of an inch of play, but you know, that's enough that you could strip out a screw. Now, with this newer screw here, I can put this number 7 in here, and I still get a little bit of play, but there's no way I could fit this number 8 in here. You know, it just won't seat all the way to the bottom. Even though it goes in, it doesn't seat all the way to the bottom. So that's where you have to know, and it's a good thing. That's why we have so many screwdrivers, so many screw tips. Now with Phillips, it's very simple. Now here are your most common used Phillips head tips, or even if you get a screwdriver. This is a 1. These are both 2s. And this is a 3. You can get a 4-2, but 4's, you know, that's usually getting into a little bigger. And you're saying, how can there be 2 2s? Well, let me show you. If you look on the side of the tips, a lot of times, this is a PZ2, and which is a Phillips, and this is also a P2, which is this is pretty much the standard. But if you see the head, how the shape of the head varies a little bit, and this one has a flatter tip, it all depends on the dimensions and the specifications on what they're going to label them as. Now the key is that when you take your screw, when you put your screw tip into here, you could see this fills up the entire, there's no gaps and no play whatsoever. This is the perfect tip for this screw. Now I'm going to take the same number 2, but this is a PZ2, as you can see here. And you can see when I put this in, it doesn't quite get down all the way. It's a thicker blade and it won't go in all the way, and you see the gaps, and this is not the size for this. Now, if we were to try a number 1, a lot of times people use the wrong thing, and you can see it buries itself in, but look how much gap there is there, and this will twist out, and there is some play, and it'll twist out the middle. You have to have the right blade for the right screw. Now, there's 2 simple reasons why most screw heads will strip out, and the first one is that there wasn't a properly sized pre-drilled hole for the screw, and there's too much resistance causing the top to strip out. And the second reason is the improper tool, which means it's, you know, we went over that before, it's either too loose and you don't have the proper fit. But most times it's because you didn't pre-drill the hole correctly. Now, there are 2 types of screws, especially in wooden stuff. Years ago, a lot of times that drywall screws were used in wooden, still are, and that's a straight shank. You can see there's not much of a taper here. It's a straight shank with some spiral flutes on it. Now, to pre-drill that, all you have to do is take a drill bit and hold it up, and you can see here, you want to see the flutes but not the center, and that'll be the perfect size to pre-drill, because that'll allow the flutes to grab the wood, and it'll create a good holding power without too much torque needed to screw that in. So that's a straight shank screw. A traditional wood screw is tapered, and you can see here. Now, the problem with a tapered screw, as you can see on this chart here, is that we have a lot of different dimensions going from here to here. So how do you pre-drill that type of screw? Now, woodworkers have what they call a tapered drill bit, which is nothing more than a drill bit that's tapered down to match this. Another thing that they came out with years ago is a dimensional drill bit. It's a step drill, more or less, where you have a basic straight shaft here, which goes up, countersinks a little bit to a second shaft, and then here's your countersink for the top. Now, if you hold this next to the screw here, you can see the profile is very close to this, and this would be the identical one to use for this screw. You would use something like this. But if you don't have these type of specialty screws, it's very different. You don't want to drill just one hole, because if you were to drill, let's say, this as a starter hole for a screw like this one here, it would be fine as it got up to this point, and then you would have all kinds of binding going on as you got to the top, because it's not, you see how much thicker it is up there. So one thing you could do is they call a 2-step drill, and that's what this illustration shows here. That's where you would take, if you were using this size screw, you would take this drill bit here, you would drill down to this length here, and then you would take a second drill bit like this one here, which you can see is thicker, and you would only drill partially down. So it would give you a profile of a hole that would look like that, and that would allow you to screw in the screw without too much torque on your fastener or your driver. So when I'm going to grind these down, I'm going to pick a profile that works best for me, you know, that's going to work here and not strip out the screw. You can take a little bit down without changing it too much, but we're going to try and do it. Really, you need different tools to do this. This set here, just to show you, this is one of those security bit sets. You find these at the tractor show or something. They're usually about $8 to $10 or something, but It's always good to have because, you know, someday you'll come across something with one of them crazy security screws in it. And this little set, you can see it comes in like a little rubber captive. It's a nice little set for 10 bucks. So let's get working on. We're going to be working on the belt sander for this because it keeps a little bit cooler and we don't want to destroy the temper of this tip. I don't want to have to reheat it. Now, you see the angle there? There's like a dual angle. This is the angle we're going to try and duplicate. This angle exactly here. So you want this part flat on here. And we're going to spin this around and just try and reprofile the tip of this. Okay, that came out very nice. Look, we reprofiled the tip here. And again, I don't have the proper tools to do this correctly. But look how nice that came out compared to what it was. And it works fantastic. When we put it into the screw here, absolutely no play, no wiggle. Fills up all the cavities there. So this came out very nice. Now the problem with the second one we see we have a little break there. So this is going to have to, we're going to see that's not acceptable. So let's go see what we can do with this one here. Okay, we finished this tip here. And what I did is I touched it first flat onto the belt sander, got that tip that was broken off. And then I went at that angle and just spun it while the belt sander was on. And I have to tell you, look at this tip here. It came out very nice, didn't it? And let me show you how it works here. Here's a screw, you know, a typical screw that we would use it. Again, no play back and forth. Fills up all the cavities. Very happy with that. So one of the reasons that I really like this screwdriver is because it is chrome vanadium. And, you know, it's a good steel, has a nice ratcheting. So let's clean up the handle and we wash the case in warm soapy water and everything is beautiful on this. And it's dried from being on the furnace for a little while. Over here, we sprayed Tri-Flow. This is my favorite lube. This is a Teflon lubricant, and this stuff is just fantastic, especially for mechanisms like this. And you could hear how smooth it sounds. Just like glass. It's beautiful. And you can see when this position here, it's a 3-position switch. When it's in the bottommost position, it's in the loosening position. If you press it up one to the middle position, it locks it both ways so it don't spin at all. And all the way to the top is for tightening. And let me show you how interesting the bits go in here. If you take a regular bit, now if you look here, all it has is a half cutaway, but it's tapered. You see that little taper there? It's not completely straight. And what you do is you place it into the top here, and then you just give a little push down. That locks the bit in. It won't go anywhere. And super simple. You can see how that is. Works very nice. And when you want to take it out, you just give it a little pull out, and it comes right out. But that tapered bit is the design that's really interesting. Let's give it a try, see how it works. We're going to take the footprint, give it a try. And what we're going to do is we're going to insert the tip that we reground here, reground to the number 2, place it in here, just give it a little push down. It's secure. We have it, we're going to put it on tighten, which is all the way up here, and we're going to take this drywall screw, this number 2 drywall screw. There's a nail hole that's in this wood already, so we'll put it in here, and I'll show you how the ratcheting works, and you can hear the ratcheting as it works here. You can see it's very smooth, and it works very nicely, and it has a nice grip to it. Again, it feels like it's a solid, very solid plastic, almost like a Bakelite or something. Now we'll put on the loosen, and again, engage the screw, and you can see how nice that tip works again. Now, drywall screws are very hard, and you have to be very careful. It can damage the tips of your screwdriver. So in closing, that's our footprint tool from Sheffield, England. It's a 6-piece screwdriver set, and I hope you enjoyed it. Again, we don't see too many of these here in the States, so maybe my buddies over in the UK can give me an idea about what year this particular product was made. But I always enjoy working on anything from England, always quality tools over there. And thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. Take care and have a nice day.